The stars around Veltar system had been quiet for 300 years. Admiral Kethvar stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the peaceful space around the Empire's capital world. His forearms crossed behind his back as he observed the daily patrol routes. Nothing ever happened here. The Zenthari Empire was too strong, too advanced for anyone to challenge. The Empire controlled 47 star systems and ruled over dozens of different alien races. Their plasma weapons could melt through any known armor. Their energy shields stopped every attack. For centuries, no enemy had even reached the outer planets of any major Zenthari system. Kethvar's scaled skin glowed a soft blue, showing his calm mood. As the Empire's most successful military commander, he had conquered 12 worlds personally. His victories were legendary among the Zenthari people. But lately there was nothing left to conquer. The nearby systems either belonged to the Empire or were too weak to bother with. "Admiral," called his communications officer, "we're receiving the daily reports from patrol ships." "Any problems?" Kethvar asked, though he already knew the answer. "No, sir. All systems normal. The trade routes are clear. No unknown ships detected." Kethvar nodded. Another boring day in the most secure system in known space. He was about to return to his quarters when something changed. The ship's sensors began making sounds he had never heard before. "Admiral!" The sensor operator's voice was high with excitement. "I'm detecting massive gravitational distortions at the edge of the system." Kethvar moved quickly to the sensor station. On the screen he could see waves of energy that made no sense. Space itself seemed to be bending and twisting in ways that should be impossible. "What is causing this?" he demanded. "Unknown, sir. The readings are unlike anything in our databases. It appears to be some kind of controlled spatial distortion." "Controlled?" Kethvar's skin shifted to yellow, showing his confusion. "No known technology can control gravity on this scale." The distortions grew stronger. Energy readings spiked beyond the sensor's ability to measure. Then something began to emerge from the twisted space. It was huge, bigger than any Zenthari warship. But its design was completely foreign. The vessel was angular and gray, covered in strange markings. Where Zenthari ships curved and flowed like living things, this ship was all hard edges and flat surfaces. Instead of the smooth plasma conduits visible on Imperial vessels, this ship had what looked like crude metal plating. "Can you identify the species?" Kethvar asked. "Negative, Admiral. The ship design matches nothing in our records. The construction methods appear primitive, using basic metallurgy instead of energy manipulation." Kethvar studied the strange vessel. Despite its crude appearance, it had somehow created a controlled wormhole to reach this system. That suggested technology far beyond what the Empire possessed. How could a species with such advanced space-folding abilities build such an ugly ship? On the other side of space, Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UNS Liberty. He was a tall man with brown hair and tired eyes. The journey to this system had taken months, following signals from ancient probes launched by Earth decades ago. "Jake," said his tactical officer, Lisa Rodriguez, "we're picking up multiple contacts. Looks like a fleet of some kind." Morrison nodded. They had expected to find alien life eventually. The probe signals had suggested an advanced civilization in this region. "Any response to our greeting transmissions?" "Nothing yet," replied Danny White, the communications officer. "The translation computers are working, but these languages are completely different from anything in our databases." Amy Foster, the science officer, looked up from her station. "Captain, I'm reading some very advanced technology on those ships. Their power signatures suggest they use plasma-based weapons and energy shielding." "How many ships?" Morrison asked. 12 that I can see clearly. Probably more on the way." Morrison studied the alien vessels on his screen. They were beautiful in their own way, flowing and organic looking. Very different from human ship design, which focused on function over appearance. "Pete, how are our systems?" Chief Engineer Pete Johnson checked his readings. "All systems green, Captain. The kinetic barriers are online and our armor plating is at full strength." Morrison made his decision. "Open a channel on all frequencies. Let's try to talk to them." Danny White worked at his station for several minutes. "Channel open, Captain." "Unknown vessels, this is Captain Jake Morrison of the Earthship UNS Liberty. We come in peace, seeking only exploration and possible trade relationships. Please respond." On the Zenthari flagship, the alien transmission came through as meaningless noise. The universal translators, which worked with all known languages, Could make no sense of the sounds. "Admiral," the communications officer reported, "we're receiving a transmission from the unknown vessel, but we cannot translate it." Kethvar's skin turned orange with annoyance. In 3 centuries of expansion, the Empire had never encountered a language they could not quickly decode. "Send the standard surrender demand. If they don't respond properly, we'll disable their ship and take the crew for questioning." The Zenthari message reached the Liberty as equally meaningless sounds. Morrison frowned. This was the challenge of first contact. How do you communicate with someone who shares no common reference points? "Captain," Amy Foster said, "I'm picking up energy buildups on several of their ships. It looks like they're preparing to fire." Morrison sighed. Humanity had hoped their first contact with aliens would be peaceful. "Raise shields and prepare defensive measures. Do not fire unless fired upon." On the Zenthari flagship, Admiral Kethvar gave the order to attack. In his experience, unknown ships that refused to surrender were always hostile. Better to disable them quickly before they could cause trouble. "Fire," he commanded. 12 Zenthari warships opened fire with their plasma cannons. Bright beams of superheated energy crossed the space between the fleets. These weapons had destroyed thousands of enemy vessels over the centuries. They could melt through any known armor in seconds. The plasma beams struck the UNS Liberty and simply disappeared. The ship's kinetic barriers absorbed the energy attacks completely. Not even a scorch mark appeared on the human vessel's hull. On both bridges, the crews stared in shock. The Zenthari could not understand how their most powerful weapons had no effect. The humans were amazed that the alien weapons were purely energy-based, exactly what their defensive systems were designed to handle. Admiral Kethvar's skin turned bright red with anger and confusion. "Fire again! Full power!" The second attack was even more intense, but the result was the same. The human ship sat in space, completely undamaged. Captain Morrison realized that communication through weapons was universal. "Lisa, fire 1 railgun round. Missed their lead ship by 50 meters. A single metal projectile shot from the Liberty at incredible speed. It passed close enough to the Zenthari flagship that their sensors could track it clearly. The simple chunk of metal carried more kinetic energy than their most powerful plasma blast. Admiral Kethvar watched the projectile data with growing fear. If that primitive metal slug had hit his ship, it would have punched straight through their energy shields like they didn't exist. How was that possible? Admiral Kethvar stared at his tactical display in complete confusion. The metal projectile from the alien ship had passed so close to his flagship that he could feel the gravitational wake it left behind. The simple piece of metal carried enough kinetic energy to destroy his entire vessel. Yet it came from what appeared to be primitive technology. "How is this possible?" he demanded from his science officer. "That ship uses crude metallurgy and chemical propulsion. Their technology should be thousands of years behind ours." The Zenthari science officer, a thin creature with pale green skin, studied the readings carefully. "Admiral, their defensive systems seem designed specifically to counter energy weapons. Our plasma cannot penetrate their barriers at all. But their offensive capabilities..." He paused, checking his instruments again. "Sir, that projectile was moving at 12% the speed of light. The kinetic energy alone would penetrate our shields completely." Kethvar's skin shifted through several colors as emotions flooded through him. Red anger, yellow confusion, and finally purple fear. In 300 years of imperial expansion, no enemy had ever made him feel afraid. Impossible. No species develops kinetic weapons to such an advanced level. Energy manipulation is always more efficient. Apparently not for these aliens, sir. On the UNS Liberty, Captain Morrison studied the alien ships through his view screen. They were keeping their distance now, probably trying to figure out what had just happened. He could understand their confusion. "Amy," he called to his science officer, "what can you tell me about their technology?" Amy Foster looked up from her scanning station. "It's fascinating, Captain. Their entire technological base seems built around energy manipulation. Those ships are using controlled plasma for propulsion, their weapons are pure energy, and their shields work by deflecting electromagnetic radiation. Which explains why they can't hurt us," said Lisa Rodriguez from the tactical station. "Our kinetic barriers and ablative armor are designed to stop physical impacts, not energy weapons." Chief Engineer Pete Johnson nodded. "It makes sense when you think about it. Most species probably develop energy weapons first because they're easier to power and control. But humans had to deal with kinetic weapons throughout our history. Bullets, artillery, missiles. We've been building armor to stop physical objects for centuries. Morrison understood the irony. Humanity's violent history had actually prepared them better for space combat than a peaceful species that had developed clean energy weapons. Danny, any luck with communications? Communications Officer Danny White was working intensively at his station. I'm trying mathematical concepts, Captain. Basic arithmetic, geometry, that sort of thing. If these aliens develop spaceflight, they must understand mathematics. Keep trying. I'd rather talk than fight. Several minutes passed as both fleets maintained their positions. Then Danny's face lit up with success. Captain, I'm getting a response. Basic mathematical confirmations. They understand prime numbers and geometric shapes. Good work. Can you convey peaceful intentions? I'm trying, sir. This is going to take time. While Danny worked on establishing communication, the Zenthari fleet received reinforcements. 6 more warships arrived from patrol duties around the system. Admiral Kethvar now commanded 18 vessels against the single human ship. The mathematical exchange continued for nearly an hour. Slowly, basic concepts were established. Numbers, directions, simple yes and no responses. Finally, Danny managed to create a basic translation matrix. Captain, he announced, I think I can handle simple communications now. Morrison straightened in his command chair. Open a channel. The voice that came through the speakers was harsh and strange, clearly alien. But the translation software managed to convey the meaning. Unknown vessel. You will surrender immediately and submit to Imperial authority. Resistance will result in your destruction. Morrison exchanged glances with his senior officers. These aliens seemed to expect immediate submission from anyone they encountered. Respond with this. We are peaceful explorers from Earth. We seek only scientific knowledge and trade opportunities. We have no hostile intentions. The response came quickly. All species in this region belong to the Zenthari Empire. You will submit to Imperial law or be destroyed. This is your final warning. Lisa Rodriguez checked her tactical displays. Captain, more ships are arriving. I count 24 vessels now. Morrison considered his options. The Liberty was outnumbered, but their weapons seemed completely superior to anything the aliens possessed. Still, he preferred negotiation to violence. Tell them this, he said to Danny. We respect the Zenthari Empire but represent an independent human government. We request safe passage through this system and permission to establish diplomatic contact. The alien response was immediate and angry. No species may claim independence from the Empire. You will surrender your vessel and crew for processing, or we will take you by force. Amy Foster looked up from her station. Captain, they're powering weapons again. All 24 ships, Morrison sighed. It seemed like these aliens only understood force. Lisa, prepare a demonstration. Target one of their smaller vessels with a single railgun round. Aim for a non-critical section if possible. Aye, Captain. Targeting their sensors array. The railgun fired a solid tungsten projectile at relativistic speed. The round punched through the Zenthari cruiser's energy shields as if they didn't exist, tore through the hull, and exited the other side. The alien ship immediately lost power and began drifting. On the Zenthari flagship, Admiral Kethvar watched in horror as one of his cruisers was crippled by a single shot. The projectile had passed completely through the vessel, destroying critical systems but leaving the crew alive. It was a perfect demonstration of controlled force. Admiral, his tactical officer reported, the alien's weapon penetrated our shields completely. The projectile maintained structural integrity throughout the impact. Our energy defenses are useless against solid objects moving at such speeds. Kethvar stared at the damaged cruiser. These aliens had deliberately chosen a non-lethal target, showing they could have destroyed the ship entirely if they wanted to. It was a clear message. We can destroy you, but we choose not to. Open communications, he ordered. The harsh alien voice came through the Liberty speakers again. How do you possess such weapons? Your technology appears primitive. Morrison smiled slightly. At least they were talking instead of shooting. Our weapons may seem primitive to you, but they're effective against energy-based defenses. We developed them through centuries of warfare on our homeworld. You admit to being a violent species? We admit to learning from our mistakes. We've moved beyond planetary warfare to exploration and discovery, but we remember the lessons our history taught us. There was a long pause before the alien responded. The Empire has never encountered kinetic weapons of such power. Your single vessel threatens our entire fleet. Morrison saw an opportunity for negotiation. We have no desire to threaten anyone. We simply want the freedom to explore space and establish peaceful contact with other civilizations. Impossible. All civilizations in this region must submit to imperial authority. It has been so for centuries. Then perhaps it's time for change, Morrison replied. The universe is large enough for multiple independent civilizations to coexist peacefully. The response was immediate and final. Never. The Empire will not allow any challenge to its authority. If your single ship will not submit, we will summon the Grand Fleet. 500 warships will reduce your vessel to debris. Morrison felt his heart sink. These aliens seemed incapable of accepting any solution except total domination. We have no wish to fight your entire fleet, but we will not surrender our freedom either. Then you have chosen destruction. The Grand Fleet is already being summoned. You have 1 day to reconsider your position. The communication channel closed, leaving the Bridge of the Liberty in tense silence. Well, Morrison said finally, I guess we're going to find out just how good our defenses really are. Lisa Rodriguez checked her weapons inventory. Captain, we have enough ammunition for extended combat. But 500 ships? I know the odds. Lisa, but sometimes you have to stand up for what's right, regardless of the odds. Amy Foster spoke up from her station. Captain, I'm detecting massive energy signatures throughout this star system. They're really calling in everything they have. Morrison looked around at his crew. These men and women had volunteered for this mission knowing they might never return to Earth. Now they faced impossible odds in humanity's first contact with an alien empire. All hands. This is the captain, he announced over the ship's intercom. We're about to face the greatest challenge in human history. The aliens we've encountered demand our surrender and submission. As representatives of humanity, we cannot accept such terms. We will stand our ground and show these aliens that humans do not bow to tyrants, no matter how powerful they claim to be. The emergency session of the Xanthari High Council convened within hours of Admiral Kethvar's report. The great chamber on the capital world buzzed with nervous energy as representatives from 47 star systems gathered to hear the impossible news. Emperor Velthok sat on his crystal throne, his ancient skin showing the deep purple color of extreme anger. In his 800 years of life, he had never heard of a single alien vessel challenging the entire empire. The very idea was absurd. Explain this again, he commanded, his voice echoing through the chamber. One primitive ship has defeated Admiral Kethvar's fleet? The holographic image of Admiral Kethvar appeared before the throne. Even through the projection, his humiliation was obvious. Your Majesty, their technology is unlike anything we've encountered. They use kinetic weapons that completely bypass our energy shields. A single projectile from their ship crippled one of our cruisers. Kinetic weapons? Scoffed Defense Minister Yelnash. What barbarian species still uses crude projectiles? Why don't they employ clean plasma technology like civilized beings? Because it works, Minister, Kethvar replied grimly. Our shields are designed to deflect energy attacks. Solid objects moving at relativistic speeds pass through them as if they don't exist. Emperor Velthok's skin shifted to bright orange with frustration. How many ships does this enemy possess? One, Your Majesty. A single vessel. The council chamber erupted in confused chatter. How could one ship threaten the Empire? It made no sense. Several ministers began shouting questions at once. Silence, roared the Emperor. The chamber fell quiet immediately. You're telling me that one alien ship has humiliated the Imperial fleet, and you request permission to retreat? Your Majesty, I request permission to summon the Grand Fleet. With overwhelming numbers, we can surround and destroy this vessel before it can escape. War Minister Kolvan leaned forward in his seat. Your Majesty, perhaps we should study this new technology first. If we could understand how they achieve such kinetic energy. No, the Emperor's skin flashed bright red. No alien species may challenge Imperial authority and survive. The very idea threatens the foundation of our empire. If word spreads that a single ship defeated our fleet, every conquered world will think they can rebel. This was the real concern, and everyone in the chamber knew it. The Xanthari Empire ruled through fear and technological superiority. If that superiority was questioned, rebellions would begin immediately across dozens of star systems. Summon the Grand Fleet, Emperor Velthok commanded. Every available warship. I want 500 vessels surrounding this alien ship. Destroy it completely and make sure the wreckage is visible to every sensor in the system. Meanwhile, aboard the UNS Liberty, the crew prepared for the impossible battle ahead. Captain Morrison walked through the ship's corridors, checking on his people and making sure everyone understood the situation. In the engineering section, Chief Engineer Pete Johnson was working with his team to optimize every system. "Pete," Morrison said, "how are we looking?" "As good as we can be, Captain," Johnson replied, wiping grease from his hands. "I've rerouted power to maximize our defensive systems. The kinetic barriers are at full strength and our ablative armor can handle massive amounts of damage before failing. What about weapons? That's where it gets interesting. Our railguns can penetrate their shields easily, but we only have so much ammunition. The real game changer will be our missile systems. Each nuclear warhead carries enough explosive power to destroy several of their ships." Morrison nodded. Humanity had learned to build powerful weapons during their violent history. Now that knowledge might save them from an alien empire. In the medical bay, Dr. Helen Carter was preparing for casualties. "Doctor," Morrison said, "I hope we won't need your services, but—" "I understand, Captain. I've studied the preliminary scans of Xanthari biology. Fascinating species, actually. They seem to be partially energy-based, which explains their technology preferences." "Energy-based?" "Their neural systems operate on electromagnetic principles more than chemical ones. That's probably why they developed energy weapons instead of kinetic systems. They think in terms of energy manipulation because that's how their brains work." Morrison found this information interesting, but he wasn't sure how it could help in the coming battle. In the science lab, Amy Foster was analyzing every piece of data they had collected about Xanthari technology. "Amy," Morrison said, "found anything useful?" "Maybe, Captain. Their ships are incredibly advanced in some ways, but they have blind spots. They've never had to deal with kinetic weapons, so their designs have no protection against physical impacts. It's like they built castles with no walls because they never expected anyone to use siege engines. Any weaknesses we can exploit. Their power systems are centralized. Each ship has a main reactor that powers everything: weapons, shields, life support, propulsion. If we could target those reactors, we'd disable the entire vessel," Morrison finished. "Good work. Pass that information to Lisa." On the bridge, Tactical Officer Lisa Rodriguez was planning their defensive strategy. With 500 enemy ships incoming, traditional tactics would be useless. They needed something completely different. "Captain," she said as Morrison returned to the bridge, "I've been thinking about our situation. We can't fight 500 ships the normal way, but we don't have to." "Explain." "Their ships are designed for energy combat. Long-range plasma exchanges where positioning and shield management matter most, but our weapons work at much longer ranges than theirs. We can start picking off their ships before they get close enough to concentrate their fire." Navigator Chris Bell looked up from his station. "Captain, I've calculated the enemy fleet's approach vectors. They'll arrive in a standard attack formation, probably expecting to surround us and fire simultaneously." Communications Officer Danny White had been monitoring Xanthari transmissions. "Captain, they're broadcasting threats on all frequencies. They want other species in this system to witness our destruction as an example." Morrison sat in his command chair and considered their options. Running was impossible. The enemy fleet would block all escape routes. Surrender was not acceptable. Humanity would become slaves to an alien empire. That left only one choice: fight. "All hands, this is the captain," he announced over the intercom. "The Xanthari Empire has decided that our request for peaceful coexistence is unacceptable. They're sending 500 warships to destroy us. Some of you might think those odds are impossible to overcome." He paused, looking around at his bridge crew. These people had volunteered to explore unknown space, knowing they might never return home. Now they faced humanity's greatest challenge. "But I want you to remember something," Morrison continued. "We represent more than just Earth. We represent the idea that free people can stand against tyranny, no matter how powerful it seems. We represent humanity's refusal to bow to bullies, and we represent the hope that intelligence and determination can overcome brute force." The first ships of the Xanthari Grand Fleet began arriving at the edge of the system. Massive battleships, sleek cruisers, and swarms of smaller vessels emerged from hyperspace. Within hours, the space around the UNS Liberty was filled with enemy contacts. Amy Foster monitored the enemy fleet's formation. "Captain, they're taking positions around us in a sphere formation. It looks like they plan to fire simultaneously from all directions." "Exactly what we expected," Morrison replied. Lisa, are you ready? Yes, Captain. All weapon systems are online. Targeting computers have identified the most dangerous ships in their formation. On the Zenthari flagship, Admiral Kethvar surveyed his massive fleet with satisfaction. 512 warships surrounded the single human vessel. No matter how advanced their weapons, they couldn't fight in all directions at once. Admiral, his tactical officer reported, all ships report ready to fire. The alien vessel is completely surrounded. Kethvar activated the fleet communication system. All ships prepare to fire on my command. Target the alien vessel's center mass. We will destroy it with a single concentrated volley. But something unexpected happened. Before Kethvar could give the order to fire, the human ship acted first. Instead of waiting to be destroyed, it launched everything it had. All ships evasive action. Kethvar shouted, but it was too late. The UNS Liberty unleashed its full arsenal simultaneously. Railgun rounds, nuclear missiles, and something the Zenthari had never seen before, autonomous hunter-killer drones. Each drone was small, fast, and equipped with learning artificial intelligence. The battle for humanity's survival had begun. The space around the UNS Liberty exploded into chaos as humanity's weapons tore through the Zenthari formation. Admiral Kethvar watched in horror as his carefully planned attack fell apart within seconds. "Report!" he shouted over the alarms filling his bridge. "Sir, the aliens launched some kind of autonomous weapons," his tactical officer replied, his voice shaking. "Small craft with artificial intelligence. They're targeting our ships individually and learning from each attack." Captain Morrison stood calmly on his bridge as the battle unfolded around them. "Lisa, status report." "Our hunter-killer drones are performing beyond expectations, Captain," Tactical Officer Lisa Rodriguez replied. "They're using the targeting data Amy provided to hit the enemy reactors directly. Each successful hit teaches the other drones how to be more effective. This was humanity's greatest advantage. Their weapons could learn and adapt during combat. The Zenthari had never faced anything like it. Their energy weapons were powerful but predictable. Human technology was designed to evolve under pressure. "Danny," Morrison called to his communications officer, "are you picking up any surrender offers?" "No, Captain. They're still broadcasting threats and demands for our surrender." Morrison nodded grimly. "Then we continue. Pete, how are our power levels?" Chief Engineer Pete Johnson checked his readings. "Steady, Captain. But I'm reading massive energy buildups from several of their larger ships. They're preparing something big." On the Zenthari flagship, Admiral Kethvar was indeed preparing something desperate. "Activate the quantum disruptors," he ordered. "Target the alien ship's hull directly." The quantum disruptor was the Empire's most advanced weapon, capable of breaking apart matter at the molecular level. It had never failed to destroy any target. But the weapon required enormous amounts of energy and could only be fired by the largest battleships. 3 Zenthari dreadnoughts fired their quantum disruptors simultaneously. Beams of twisted spacetime struck the UNS Liberty's hull, designed to unmake the very atoms of the ship. For a moment, the human vessel seemed to shimmer and fade. Then the quantum energy dissipated harmlessly against the Liberty's experimental shields. "Impossible," Kethvar screamed. "Nothing can withstand quantum disruption." On the Liberty's bridge, Amy Foster smiled grimly. "Captain, their quantum weapons work by manipulating subatomic particles, but our new neutronium-enhanced armor is designed to resist exactly that kind of attack." Morrison felt a moment of satisfaction. Earth scientists had theorized about quantum weapons and developed defenses before humanity ever left their solar system. Once again, paranoid preparation was saving their lives. "Lisa, target those dreadnoughts. I want them gone." "Aye, Captain." Launching antimatter torpedoes. The antimatter weapons were humanity's most dangerous creation, warheads containing equal amounts of matter and antimatter held apart by magnetic fields. When the fields collapsed, the explosion released pure energy equivalent to multiple nuclear bombs. 3 antimatter torpedoes streaked toward the Zenthari dreadnoughts. The enemy ships tried to intercept them with their point defense systems, but the torpedoes used quantum entanglement for guidance. They could not be fooled or diverted. The first torpedo struck Admiral Kethvar's flagship. The antimatter explosion was visible from 3 star systems away. The massive dreadnought simply vanished in a flash of pure energy. The other 2 torpedoes found their targets moments later. In less than a minute, the 3 most powerful ships in the Zenthari fleet had been completely destroyed. The remaining enemy ships fell back in confusion. Without their command ship, the fleet coordination collapsed. Individual captains began making their own decisions, and most of those decisions involved running away. But Emperor Velthok was monitoring the battle from his throne world. He activated the emergency command protocol, taking direct control of the fleet. "All ships maintain your positions." His voice boomed across the communication channels. "Any captain who retreats will be executed for cowardice. Destroy that alien ship at all costs." The threat of execution forced the Zenthari captains to stay and fight, but their hearts were no longer in the battle. How do you fight an enemy that can learn from your attacks and destroy your strongest ships with single shots? Morrison saw the enemy fleet's hesitation and decided to try diplomacy one more time. "Danny, open a channel to all enemy ships." "Channel open, Captain." "Zenthari vessels, this is Captain Morrison. We've demonstrated that we can defend ourselves. We have no desire to destroy your entire fleet. Withdraw your ships and we can discuss peaceful coexistence." The response came directly from Emperor Velthok himself. "Never. The Empire does not negotiate with rebels and terrorists. If conventional weapons cannot destroy you, we will use our ultimate weapon." Amy Foster's instruments detected massive energy buildups from the inner system. "Captain, something big is happening near their capital world. Energy readings are off the charts." On his throne world, Emperor Velthok had made the decision that would forever change the Empire. He activated the Planet Killer weapon, a massive space station capable of destroying entire worlds. It had been built centuries ago but never used, kept in reserve as the ultimate threat against rebellion. "Prepare to fire the world burner," he commanded. "Target the alien ship's position. If we cannot capture them, we will vaporize them along with anything else in that area of space." The Planet Killer weapon began charging its core. The process would take 20 minutes, but once fired, nothing could survive its beam. The weapon could crack planets in half and turn space itself into a field of deadly radiation. Dr. Helen Carter was treating wounded crew members in the medical bay when she made a discovery that would change everything. While analyzing tissue samples from the earlier battle, she noticed something strange about Zenthari biology. "Captain," she called over the intercom. "I need you in medical bay immediately. I found something important." Morrison hurried to the medical section where Dr. Carter showed him her analysis. "Look at this, Captain. The Zenthari aren't fully biological in the way we understand it. They're partially energy beings." "What does that mean?" "Their consciousness exists as electromagnetic patterns within their physical bodies. That's why they developed energy-based technology. They think in terms of energy manipulation because that's literally how their brains work." Morrison studied the data, but he wasn't sure how this information could help them. "Doctor, we're about to face some kind of planet-killing weapon. How does this help us?" "Because if they're energy beings, they might be vulnerable to the right kind of electromagnetic pulse. Not enough to kill them, but enough to disrupt their consciousness temporarily." Amy Foster's voice came over the intercom. "Captain, you need to get back to the bridge immediately. That energy buildup I detected is some kind of massive weapon. It's almost ready to fire." Morrison rushed back to the bridge where the main screen showed a weapon of unimaginable size approaching from the inner system. It was larger than most space stations, bristling with energy conduits and focusing arrays. "Amy, analysis? It's a planet killer, Captain. The energy output will be enough to destroy everything within 1,000,000 kilometers of the target point, including us." Morrison realized they had pushed the Empire too far. These aliens would rather commit genocide than accept defeat. "Options? We could try to outrun it," Lisa suggested, "but it's already locked onto our position." "We could surrender," Danny offered quietly. "No," Morrison said firmly. "If we surrender now, they'll use this weapon on Earth the moment they find our homeworld." Dr. Carter's voice came from the medical bay. "Captain, I think I have a solution. Based on my analysis of their biology, I can modify our communications array to broadcast an electromagnetic pulse tuned to their neural frequencies. It won't hurt them, but it should disrupt their consciousness temporarily." Morrison understood immediately, knocking out their crews without destroying their ships. "Exactly. But I'll need Amy's help to calibrate the frequency correctly." Morrison made his decision. "Do it, Amy. Work with Dr. Carter. Lisa, prepare our remaining weapons. If this doesn't work, we go down fighting." The planet killer weapon reached firing position and began its final charging sequence. Emperor Velthok watched from his throne, certain that this would end the threat to his empire forever. But in the medical bay of the UNS Liberty, two human women were working frantically to save not just their own ship, but potentially the entire galaxy from an empire that would destroy worlds rather than accept change. Foster's fingers flew over her instruments as she analyzed the electromagnetic signatures of Xanthari neural activity. "I think I have it, Doctor. But the power requirements are enormous." "Pete," Dr. Carter called to engineering, "can you reroute all non-essential power to the communications array?" "Already on it, Doc. You'll have everything we've got." The planet killer weapon completed its charging cycle. Emperor Velthok smiled as he prepared to give the order that would eliminate humanity's first representative to the stars. "Fire," he commanded. But at that exact moment, the UNS Liberty broadcast its modified electromagnetic pulse across the entire Xanthari fleet. The electromagnetic pulse from the UNS Liberty spread across space at the speed of light, reaching every Xanthari ship in the system simultaneously. On hundreds of vessels, alien crews suddenly collapsed as their energy-based consciousness was temporarily disrupted. Admiral Kethvar felt the pulse hit his mind like a gentle wave. For a moment his thoughts scattered and reformed. When awareness returned, he found himself lying on the floor of his bridge, with strange aliens in white uniforms checking his vital signs. "Please remain still," said the human medic in accented but understandable Xanthari. "You've experienced neural disruption, but there's no permanent damage." Kethvar struggled to understand what was happening. According to everything he knew about warfare, he should be dead. His fleet had been defeated, his flagship destroyed. The victorious enemy should be either killing the survivors or taking them as slaves. Instead, these humans were providing medical care. On the planet killer weapon, the crew had also been affected by the pulse. The massive weapon powered down as its operators fell unconscious. By the time they recovered, human boarding parties had already secured the weapon's control systems. Emperor Velthok watched from his throne world in complete shock. His ultimate weapon had been neutralized without firing a shot. His entire fleet floated helplessly in space while the enemy provided medical assistance to his crews. Captain Morrison stood on the bridge of the UNS Liberty, surveying the aftermath of the strangest battle in human history. They had defeated a massive enemy fleet without destroying a single ship or killing a single alien crew member. "Danny," he said to his communications officer, "open a channel to all Xanthari vessels." "Channel open." "Captain." Morrison took a deep breath before speaking. This moment would determine the future relationship between humanity and the Xanthari Empire. "Xanthari fleet, this is Captain Morrison. Your crews are safe and unharmed. We are providing medical assistance to anyone who needs it. We could have destroyed your ships but chose not to. We want you to understand that humans prefer mercy to destruction." The response came from several ships simultaneously as their commanders regained consciousness and tried to understand their situation. Admiral Kethvar's voice was the clearest. "Why? Why spare us? We came to destroy you." "Because destruction accomplishes nothing," Morrison replied. "We came to this system seeking knowledge and friendship. We found an empire that rules through fear. But we've also found a species capable of building beautiful ships and developing incredible technology. We believe you can be better than your current system allows." On his throne world, Emperor Velthok listened to this exchange with growing confusion. In 800 years of life, he had never heard of a victorious enemy offering mercy to defeated opponents. It went against everything he understood about power and conquest. Dr. Helen Carter's voice came over the intercom. "Captain, I'm receiving reports from our medical teams aboard the Xanthari ships. Their crews are recovering normally. No permanent damage from the neural disruption." Amy Foster looked up from her science station. "Captain, I'm monitoring communications across their fleet. The individual ship commanders are trying to understand why we didn't destroy them." This was the crucial moment. Morrison activated the fleet-wide communication channel again. "Xanthari commanders, I want you to understand something important. Humanity has the technology to destroy your entire fleet. We proved that when we eliminated your 3 largest ships. But we chose to disable you instead of destroying you. Why do you think we made that choice?" There was a long silence before Admiral Kethvar responded. We do not understand. In our experience, the victor takes everything from the defeated." "Then your experience has been limited," Morrison replied. "True strength isn't about destroying your enemies. It's about turning enemies into friends. We want to share knowledge with you, learn from each other, and explore the galaxy together. Impossible, came Emperor Velthok's voice from the throne world. The Empire cannot accept equality with any species. We are the rightful rulers of this region of space. Morrison had expected this response. Your Majesty, with respect, your fleet just learned that you're not the strongest species in the galaxy. Your choice now is simple. You can continue trying to rule through fear and face other species like humanity who won't submit, or you can join a community of equals and benefit from shared knowledge and peaceful trade. The Emperor's response was immediate and angry. Never. The Empire will never bow to alien demands. But Admiral Kethvar interrupted his Emperor for the first time in his career. Your Majesty, perhaps we should consider this offer. These humans defeated our entire fleet with a single ship. If there are more species like them in the galaxy, there are, Morrison confirmed. Humanity is just one of many species that value freedom over submission. The galaxy is vast, Your Majesty. There's room for everyone to prosper without conquest and slavery. Communications Officer Danny White had been monitoring transmissions throughout the Empire. Captain, he said quietly, I'm picking up signals from other star systems. Word of this battle is spreading. Some of the conquered worlds are asking questions about independence. This was exactly what Emperor Velthok had feared. If the Empire's military superiority was proven false, rebellions would begin immediately. But Morrison offered a different solution. Your Majesty, the human captain said, you have a choice to make. You can try to hold your empire together through force, which will lead to endless rebellions and wars. Or you can lead a voluntary federation where member worlds choose to cooperate for mutual benefit. Amy Foster whispered to Morrison, Captain, I'm detecting massive energy buildups on the throne world. It looks like they're preparing some kind of last resort weapon. Morrison realized the Emperor was desperate enough to destroy his own capital world, rather than accept change. Your Majesty, please listen to reason. Destroying your own people won't solve anything. But before the Emperor could activate whatever weapon he was preparing, something unexpected happened. Admiral Kethvar spoke again, and this time his words were broadcast throughout the Empire. Citizens of the Zenthari Empire, he began, I have served our empire faithfully for 3 centuries. I have conquered 12 worlds in the name of imperial expansion. But today I learned something new about strength. Emperor Velthok tried to cut off the transmission, but human technicians aboard the captured planet killer weapon were already relaying the signal across the galaxy. These humans could have destroyed our entire fleet, Kethvar continued. Instead, they chose mercy. They offered us medical aid and spoke of friendship. They showed us that true strength comes from choice, not force. I hereby request that His Majesty consider establishing peaceful relations with humanity and granting independence to any worlds that wish to leave the Empire. The response was immediate. Across dozens of star systems, conquered worlds began broadcasting their own messages of support for Admiral Kethvar's proposal. Species that had been enslaved for centuries saw their first hope for freedom. Emperor Velthok found himself facing a choice he had never imagined: evolve or face complete revolution. The human ship had proven that the Empire's military superiority was an illusion. His own admiral was calling for reform. His conquered worlds were demanding freedom. Captain Morrison offered one final option. Your Majesty, humanity offers you a partnership instead of submission. Share your knowledge of energy manipulation, and we'll share our understanding of kinetic systems. Work with us to explore the galaxy peacefully, and we'll help you build a federation that prospers through cooperation instead of conquest. The Emperor sat in silence for a long time. Around him, his advisors waited for his decision. Throughout the galaxy, billions of beings held their breath. Finally, Emperor Velthok spoke. Admiral Kethvar, you are hereby promoted to Ambassador Kethvar. You will represent the Zenthari people in negotiations with these humans. All worlds currently in the Empire may choose their own path. Remain as willing partners or seek independence. The change that followed was gradual but profound. Over the following months, 17 worlds chose independence. 23 remained as willing partners in the new Zenthari Federation, and 7 others requested admission to what became known as the Galactic Community. Captain Morrison and the crew of the UNS Liberty became the first human ambassadors to alien civilizations. They established the principle that would guide future human expansion: respect for all sentient life and the right of every species to determine its own destiny. The former Zenthari Empire became humanity's first alien ally, sharing their advanced energy technologies in exchange for human kinetic systems and medical knowledge. Dr. Carter's discovery about Zenthari biology led to breakthrough treatments for both species. 6 months after the battle, Ambassador Kethvar visited Earth as part of the first official diplomatic exchange. Standing in the United Nations building, he addressed humanity directly. Your species has taught us that strength without wisdom is merely destruction. You showed us mercy when you could have chosen vengeance. You offered partnership when you could have demanded submission. The galaxy is better because humanity chose the difficult path of peace over the easy path of conquest.